If your characters start hooking up in Act 1, how can you maintain the emotional longing and tension throughout the rest of the book? Let's chat about it on this slightly spicier edition of the StoryPod podcast. Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. Listen, good evening. We're doing a little after work special. This episode today is a little bit more spicy in content than I usually would feel comfortable discussing. Now, full disclosure, there's not going to be anything, what was the word? Anything, come on, words after work. Nothing explicit. That's the word I was looking for. Nothing explicit, nothing detailed or anything like that. But the discussion for today is going to be about characters having physical intimacy in the book. So, just beware. If this is not your jam, I totally understand, because it's usually not my jam, but I found it to be a little bit of an interesting question. So anyway, with that said, my name is Ashley. I am your creative BFF, okay? This podcast is like a story gym, okay? Basically, this is how we're treating it. We come here, we put in some reps, we build some storytelling muscle, okay? We lift these storytelling weights on stories that aren't necessarily ours, so there's no pressure, okay? But we're still building the muscle so that when we sit down in front of our own stories, we are able to perform, okay? We can throw that car off the baby. You know what I'm saying? So if you have any story questions that I can help you with, or if you would like some story coaching, please feel free to hit me up. You can find all of the links below. Girl, I don't have to say it every time, right? They're all below in the description just for you. All right. So yeah. Why don't we go ahead and get into it? As per usual, especially on days when we are doing an after work special, when the brain is just a little bit tired, okay? Words maybe don't come as smoothly. It's not popping as much as it normally would be. I do have notes, okay? And I wrote a fair amount of notes to answer this question. So please forgive me, because I will be reading through and perhaps expounding on these notes. So, but before I do that, let's go ahead and read the question. It is from the r/romance writers subreddit. How to maintain the mutual pining tension once my characters are already hooking up. My female main character is cursed. She has to have sex or she'll die. As an introverted virgin with neurospicy social anxiety and a secret embarrassing crush on her hot stepbrother, this is her worst nightmare. And her hot stepbrother, who has been in love with her for years, has offered to help her manage her symptoms while they look for a cure. My question is, how do I handle keeping the mutual pining and the emotional tension high when they're already doing it? I'm concerned that once the main thing standing in their way is more internal, his PTSD and the fact that she is in hiding, and they've fallen into bed together, the longing and yearning won't hit as hard. All right, so that's a good question, and it's a fair question, because in romance, right, especially romance novels that are heading towards, are for an audience who wants to see the intimacy. It's not my jam. I love romance, but I don't want the explicit stuff personally. But yeah, part of that is part of the, I guess I would imagine the enjoyment for that audience is they are also kind of like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Right. So if you already are in there in Act 1, then, or at the beginning, at the very latest of Act 2, and then it's like, okay, what are we looking forward to? How can we, keep the reader's interest, right? So I have some ideas, but before I share, let me know how you would handle this if you were writing this sort of book, or if you were advising someone who has this plot, which is an interesting plot, So let's get into it, shall we? So these are in no particular order. As I was writing these notes earlier today, I just kind of was like, whatever is popping up, I'm writing. It's not like in order of importance or even in a chronological story-based order. These are just some ideas to hopefully help keep the tension, the emotional tension going. Now, I do want to say, I give you all these preambles. I do want to say before I dig into this particular pairing is a little bit uncomfortable for me. It wouldn't be one that I would choose. The exceptions to this sort of pairing, which, listen, we've seen it in like Clueless and things like that. And when I watched Clueless as a little kid, and even as I watch it, as an adult, it was like, okay, I'm not mad at that, because I was rooting for Cher and her stepbrother to get together. But some of the ways that it would make it, now this is not part of the question, but I did want to say this. It would be less uncomfortable if, on the one end, if they're still kind of young, like teenagers or whatever, which hopefully they're not, but if they were on the young end, still living at home, if they had already established a friendship prior to their parents meeting and getting married, that kind of takes some of the uncomfortableness of it out, because it's like, all right, they were already friends, and because they were friends, the parents met and stuff. And so it's like, I can be okay with that. And then the second would be if they are adults not living under the same roof, perhaps their parents are divorced, or they might still, I would say probably the divorce. I was going to say maybe they'll still be together, but I think if the parents are divorced, these are adults not living under the same roof. So the same kind of like Clueless movie setup for the two leads, right? Or the romantic leads, even though I don't think that their romance was a major part of that. Anyway, listen, let me not go all off on the deep end. So I just wanted to say that up front. This is kind of like a little bit of an uncomfortable pairing for me, but listen, even if it's not my jam, if it's your jam, listen, live your life. You know what I'm saying? So the first thing that I thought of was to keep their initial intimacy like clinical, serving a purpose, that kind of a thing. I didn't really elaborate on that because I felt like I had better ideas later on. So the quality of their encounters, not really involving romance and things like that. The next thing that I was thinking to kind of keep the emotional tension kind of tense, keep that rubber band a little bit taut, you know what I'm saying, is to give them, and this is kind of annoying, this can be really annoying, I understand. I don't love this as a trope. I don't know if it's a trope. I don't love this as a solution for this, but listen, it's there. And that is to give them misunderstandings or giving them a misread on each other's feelings. And they're interpreting each other's feelings incorrectly, right? And the next that kind of ties into it, this is kind of like flowing out of that. Their characterization, the way you characterize them, can be the playground of these misunderstandings, these incorrect reads on each other's emotions. So for example, and it's already kind of set up, and this might be what they're already doing, what the writer's already doing. But if the male lead, since he's hot, has always just kind of been out here in these streets, he just is out here in these streets. You know what that means, right? He's just, living his life. He gets the girls, if you know what I mean. And the types of girls that he's usually going for are not the female lead's type. She is not that physical or appearance type of girl. So she sees the types of girls that he's always going for over the years. And that puts her firmly in her mind in the he would never be interested in me I'm not his type or whatever, that kind of area. And then for her, this might not be exactly the characterization that we're going for with the female lead, but if from the outside, because of the issues listed in the question, introversion, neurospicy, whatever how do they say it? I don't want to be rude. They said neurospicy social anxiety. Okay. So on the outside, perhaps that can look like a little bit of a cold fish. That's a terrible term. Forgive me for using that, but you get what I'm saying, right? She's not really trying to do relationships at all. How did I phrase this? She rejects romance at every turn because of her social anxiety. And so he feels like she's just not interested in relationships or anything like that. So that could be part of why he's out here in these streets, trying to find somebody who's the opposite of what he actually likes. Okay. To kind of hide that, along with the issues that the writer has already mentioned, him having PTSD, which from what he or she does not specify. But they could be sharing these things over the years of their friendship and, having lived under the same roof for however long, being stepbrother, stepsister, being friends and all that kind of stuff. They can share their experiences with each other, because they see each other maybe as a safe space or whatever for sharing all of that. So she's hearing all of his stories, maybe not super explicit the way he would tell his friends in the locker room. But then she's also maybe talking about her, mishaps, her unfortunate attempts at dating and the guys who would be interested in her and things that she's tried that just haven't worked. And so she just resigns herself to not being in a romantic relationship. And so they have already this setup of like, this person would not be interested in me for whatever their reasons are. And then when the conversation comes up about, the curse and her requiring physical intimacy in order to stay alive, he offers himself as tribute while they are trying to break the curse. And so she sees it not as he's interested in her, but he is helping her. And so it wouldn't be like he's interested in me romantically, and it's easy for him to just sleep with me, probably because he's just slept with a bunch of people anyway. So it's not sex is not special to him in her mind, and it, could be that maybe he hasn't slept with as many girls as he gives the appearance of doing, because he secretly is in love with her. So he just is not like, that could be a nice little twist where he's not able to be physically interested when it comes to the bedroom in other girls, really, because he is into our female lead. Okay. But they don't know that. And from outside appearances, it looks like he's just out here slanging it around. Sorry. Please forgive me. Another option could be that the first time that they are, the first encounter, it's really awkward, and perhaps she's like resigned to dying and this not working, and it being kind of like, oh my gosh, I don't think I'm gonna be able to do this. And he could come in and be like, well, let's just think about it like a quest, especially if you give her part of her characterization is maybe she's interested in gaming or, role playing or whatever kind of quirks and things you give her. However he frames it could be something that is unique to her and the way that you have characterized her and the things the things that she's interested in and stuff like that. And so now they approach it as something kind of goofy and funny. So their encounters from that point become more friendshipy based, goofy, funny, fumbling, but they're laughing about it as they try to find what works together. And so it still has this quality of friendship, even though they're being physically intimate, and we're suspending disbelief Okay. Cause I don't know if that would really work in real life, but you let me know. I don't know. It's not my lifestyle. So I don't know, but, yeah, so that's how they're keeping it all the while, emotionally pining for each other, but trying to keep it like, I'm not interested in you. You know what I'm saying? So then the next possible little way to keep emotional tension going and add some conflict is to bring in viable second leads for both of them, perhaps, or one of them. But, it might be nice for both of them to have some viable second leads. Oops, hold on just a second. Sorry, I had to move something off my screen. But yeah, some romantic options that are not each other. For the first time, maybe she's actually interested in somebody who's kind of cool and he maybe has the same thing or some, whatever, however you want to work it out. But that could bring in some interesting conflict, and it could be especially potent, this kind of second lead for each of them. I keep looking away. I always look away. Please forgive me. Especially for when the intimacy begins to change. And what I'm thinking when I say that is that at some point there could be a switch that flips in how they perceive their intimacy. It's not satisfying. They're no longer having fun with it. It's maybe at that point it is becoming a duty, and perhaps that's because their internal things, as well as what they believe to be unrequited love, is getting in the way. And so it doesn't, the intimacy, whereas before it was friendly and funny and goofy and fun and kind of, like awkward, but in a fun way that you would have with awkward in a fun way, basically. Now, as their feelings for each other deepen and as their internal issues start to rise to the surface, there's issues in that, and they're not able to enjoy it. It's not satisfying for them and all that kind of stuff. And then here we already have these second leads kind of in position to pull them away from each other a little bit. Now she has somebody else who can perhaps fulfill that need of the curse, the requirement of the curse for her, and we explore how she feels about that. And how does the male lead feel about that? Somebody from his past who he actually was interested in, maybe before he met her, whatever, or, but somebody who was actually a potential comes back in his life and things like that. So however works best for the story, but bringing in other romantic interests could keep that pining tension as they are pulled away from each other in other directions. So then, you know what I want to say this point about this lack of satisfaction and fun as their perception of their intimacy changes. And I want to just mention they could have started off kind of quietly thinking that the charade of this would be enough, but now maybe they each want a real relationship with the other, but their internal issues are in the way. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that point. I kind of said that, I think, generally, but I wanted to specify it because I wrote it on my notes. The next thing is I did want to this is not necessarily how to keep the tension going, but I did want to continue the through line of that thought, which is when they do finally admit to their feelings and all that kind of stuff, then the quality of their intimacy changes again to like love and cherishing and all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's like really deep. It's not just like, it's not like either one of them has ever experienced. Well, she has not had other experiences because she's a virgin at the start of the story, but he may have had other experiences. So it's not like anything that they've experienced before, and it's like real. And then another way to keep another potential conflict that can help keep the emotional tension going is what happens when the parents find out that this is going on, whether or not they're divorced, and this becomes a conflict. How do the parents react to this? Are they separated depending on their ages and things like that? But what is the effect of this relationship on the family unit, whether it's intact or it's been, broken by divorce. So that could be a very interesting conflict. And then when the revelation of that happens to their parents, it could also, what they say could also reinforce their incorrect understandings of each other's feelings. So that could be a nice little bit of conflict to help keep that tension going. And then the last kind of thought that I played around with, and I didn't go super deep, but what happens when they break the curse? When he is no longer required for when his services are no longer required. That could be a very interesting bit of tension. You could potentially tie that into the second leads and all this kind of stuff and add confusion about what were we doing? What are the feelings? Where do we stand, to each other, all that kind of stuff. So when they break the curse, I think could be another great opportunity for emotional tension and pining and longing, because it's another thing that could pull them apart, especially depending on how the curse is broken, So I think that that's enough out of me for today. That I think, covers a pretty fair range of options for this, but I would like to know what you guys think. I want to say this real quick. If you've gotten this far, I want to address and apologize. Nobody's kind of like taking me to task for this, but I do kind of feel a little bit bad that I take so long to respond to comments. I do have, a full-time job, and I do have coaching clients and just other clients who are hiring my services for art or writing or both. So that kind of, messes with my time and my ability to sit down and respond to comments. But also, if I'm being honest, and this may be the truest part, I'm a little bit afraid to look at the comments. Not that I think that any of you guys would be whack and crazy and janky, because we're all friends here. We don't have to agree, but we can use tact and we can be classy in how we disagree. And even if we can't come to a meeting of the minds, we can agree to disagree and move on as friends, continuing down this path of storytelling together. But it does low key, because I'm still kind of, social media shy a little bit, as much as I'm like trying to, do this type of thing. But reading the comments and stuff is a little bit uncomfy for me. I'm trying to be better at it. So please forgive me if you comment on a video and then you see that I respond like a month or two later. That was when I had the emotional fortitude to be able to sit down and see what you guys are saying in response. However, I do still want to know what you think about this, even if it's 3 months later. But anyway, so listen, have a great evening. Enjoy your weekend, girl. Okay. Girls and guys, whatever. Enjoy your weekend. I will see you next Friday. The delirium is hitting at this point. Bye.